Welcome to the AME Roundup Rorschach presentation on the Reliance Gold Project located in Goldbridge, BC. The project is located 220 kilometers drive north of Vancouver through Whistler, and that's a summer drive, and it's about a 4-hour summer drive. It's located in the town of Goldbridge, as mentioned, and Goldbridge is an historic gold camp and famous for the Bralorne Pioneer Mine, which has produced over 4 million ounces of gold. Our Reliance project is located about 4 kilometers east of Goldbridge, and is located on a parallel regional structural feature, which are common in this area and are one of the controls for the Talus Bralorne Pioneer Mine. This area has seen a lot of history to it. It was part of the Fraser Valley Gold Rush, and prospectors and others moved into this area in the late 1800s. And there's probably been hard rock activity in the area from 1896 to the 1930s, where there was prospecting and small gold production at Reliance as well as Bralorne around that time. The first documented information that we have on the Reliance property was that in 1915, 4 tons of ore, probably hand cobbed, had been bagged for shipment and carried up to a ½ ounce of gold per ton. Also, during the First World War, around the same time, a small tonnage was reported to have been shipped to England. In 1934, we do have a copy of a report in our records now that was completed in 1934, and that was just around the same time that Bralorne first poured its first gold bar in 1932, and that collective group of mines there produced over 4 million ounces. As you can see, this is just an image from a 1950 report that was actually completed on the Reliance property, and it's colored red on this map. And at the time, it was owned by a company called Hillstake Mining Company. So it was fairly quiet from that period, right from the 30s through to 1985. There was never, to the best of our knowledge, there's never been a drill hole on it until 1985, at which time Manica Mining acquired the property. It was Crown grants at the time, and from 1985 to 2008 conducted various exploration programs on the property. But they had some early success in 1986 with a discovery hole at what's now called the Imperial zone, where they intersected 0.262 ounce per ton gold over 45 feet in that drill hole. A lot of drilling done by Manica and a lot of exploration, but a great deal of it focused very much on about 100-meter long trend of a zone that encompassed the Imperial zone. And in fact, the last high-quality drill program that they did was in 2008, and those were holes that were conducted and drilled on this Imperial zone. So there's a great amount of exploration potential along what's called the Royal Shear, and we'll get into that in describing it. But the exploration by Manica in this period very much focused on only a small part of that system. So we've got ourselves a great discovery stage gold project in a productive gold camp. It's an easy drive from Vancouver, and we've got some historic drill intersections, which I'll summarize later, especially the 2008 holes, because that was a good quality program that was done in 2008. We optioned the property in late 2019, and in 2020 started an exploration program, and we went back to basics. First thing we did was try to locate and compile all the historic data, because it didn't come with the data. We completed an airborne magnetic survey, which had never been done, completed systematic soil coverage over the most encouraging 1 to 1.5 kilometers of the structure, and we also completed a biogeochemical survey over the property. We also completed surface channel sampling, and we had some excellent results and identified a new discovery. So we wanted to drill, and we did get our drill permit late in the year in October, and completed RC drilling of 17 holes by December. Drilling assays are expected in the first quarter of 2021, and our 2021 drilling program sort of in the planning stages at the current time. As I mentioned, the Reliance project's a 4-hour summer drive from Vancouver. It's just a short distance from Goldbridge. It's only 10 kilometers away from the Bralorne Pioneer mine, which is a plus 4 million ounce producer. Very poorly explored property, an underexplored property. And the gold mineralization is hosted with an anchorite, sericite, kaolinite alteration system. That alteration system is very significant. It's over 100 meters wide and at least a kilometer long, maybe 1.1 kilometers long before it disappears under cover. And in that 100-meter zone, I mentioned that Monica had explored. There's some good drill intersections, including these 5 holes I list here from 2008 down to 250 meters vertical depth, where they got intersections like 13.3 grams over 4.2 meters and 5.4 grams over 15 meters. It's about a 1.1 kilometer long alteration zone. We got very excellent gold and soil results, and I'll touch on those during the presentation, and significant gold and rock, of course, along the Royal Shear. That culminated in a program of channel sampling where we got some very encouraging systematic results. And our 2020 drilling program was on targets that were really last evaluated with some surface work in 32 years ago. And we intersected some good zones that we remain to get some assays on, but we're encouraged by some of the proxy elements like arsenic and what we see in the hole. So we have an option to earn 100% on this project, and it's subject to 2.5% NSR with a buy down to 1%. The most interesting thing about the district is the fact that this is an orogenic gold system. As we mentioned, the Bralorne mines produced over 4 million ounces of gold, and it's orogenic. It has been established from 2017 metallurgical and geochronological research by Geoscience BC that this is a 65 million year, roughly 65 million year old Cretaceous age system, and related to the Bendar Pluton. It was likely the heat and hydrothermal engine, and the data, isotopic data, suggests that there's been a single regionally extensive late Cretaceous gold mineralizing hydrothermal episode that continued for several million years until the emplacement of the Bendar Pluton. Both Bralorne and Reliance mineralization are the same age. That's an important conclusion from this work. And the Reliance prospect actually represents an epizonal exposure of the same orogenic type gold system that resulted in Bralorne, but Reliance is at a shallower emplacement. The Bralorne systems has its own structural setting, and we're on a parallel structural setting where we have large scale brittle ductile reverse faulting and widespread fluid flow along this reactivated crustal scale fault system. And it's in place to Bralorne type orogenic gold mineralization at deeper levels and Reliance type epizonal mineralization at the shallower crustal levels. Thus, the important point of this is the Reliance type gold systems could contain gold endowments like Bralorne. So this just shows you the location on the right side of this photo is the Imperial zone discovery. You can see that Gossan alteration zone next to some of those forestry roads and drilling roads from the historic exploration activity. It faces onto Carpenter Lake, which is a BC Hydro reservoir lake behind one of BC Hydro's largest dams in the province of BC. And on the north shore of Carpenter Lake is the Gold Bridge to Lillooet Highway. And then there's an all-access year-round with government-maintained roads that access the south side of Carpenter Lake as well, right to the property. This just shows an image over Carpenter Lake looking southeast along the structural trend, and you can see it's a very obvious structural trend in the topography, with about a 1.1 kilometer zone here of numerous gold prospects over that trend. And you see a very strong lineament feature where on the right side or west side of this picture is the sediment-dominated, chert-dominated sequence of sediments, and in the footwall is typically purplish to green volcanics, all of Permian age, and in the area of this structure, where we call the Royal Shear, there's a very strong alteration of those volcanics that it's at least 100 meters wide and at least 1.1 kilometers long, and that's what causes this buff orange weathering of the volcanics in the footwall of that Royal Shear structure. There are parallel structures. You can see a linear from a Treasure Shear, less important, and another Camp Creek Shear over here, which actually has some of the historic workings located on it. We understand there were two historic workings at the lower end of the Royal Shear here, and there are also historic workings over in Camp Creek. There is also another structure down a steep creek in this area, all part of this northwest southeast trending regional structures, part of a compressional continent building regime of structures. This is the Airborne survey we did with the vertical gradient airborne magnetics, and you can see the Royal Shear is this thrust feature we identify on this figure, and the known gold occurrences are shown here with yellow dots on the property. So the magnetics does help to delineate the trends of those shears, and it's helped us with our exploration activity with respect to how we evaluate the strike continuity of this system. So this is a geological map that was completed this summer by Jim Oliver, and the pinkish color on here is the various from weak to moderate to strong anchorite alteration over that full 1 plus 1.2 kilometer length of area that's exposed on this on the area that's been mapped. There is a diorite down in this area, but most of this footwall unit on the right of the reverse fault is mafic volcanics that are altered to iron carbonate over this full trend. We have some pretty significant gold prospects that we've confirmed this year over at least 1.1 kilometers of strike, and this just gives you some highlights of some of our activity from this year. The furthest to the southeast, 6.92 gram per ton gold over 13.4 meters. Again, another one up that still keeps the zone open to the southeast of 4.88 grams per ton over 23.5 meters. A very significant zone of 5.89 grams per ton gold over 32.5 meters. And then some encouraging but lower grade results of 3.14 grams per ton over 6.7 meters, the northeast of the trend on what we call our Imperial North. So this shows you what this alteration looks like. It's a very powerful and extensive alteration system. This is when it was first opened up with a bulldozer back in probably 1986 or so. This photo was taken. It's overgrown and sloughed into some degree, so we had to do a lot of cleaning off to re-expose some of these outcrops. But the important thing here is the width and strength of the alteration. So we have a very wide iron carbonate alteration system. Mineralization seems to be restricted within that large alteration system to several strands of brittle ductile faulting of different types. nature of the mineralization, it's related to silicification, but also just sulfidization in gold, arsenic, antimony type mineralization in the footwall of this Royal Shear regional fault. So there's just more detail of the previous map I showed, breaking down all the results down at the southeast end, where we have a detailed map that will go into that detail a little later. And the targets up here, the Imperial area, and we'll touch on those separately as we go through this presentation. So the detail down the southeast end this is what we call our Eagle Zone detailed geology. And you can see this is the base based on the work that we completed this past year of detailed channel sampling. And you can see there's some very good zones here of 6.92 over 13.4 meters. 4.88 over 23.5, 5.89 over 31.5, and also down in this zone, 3.63 grams over 17 meters. So pretty encouraging over a 100 by 100 meter area. And where these aren't exposed with these road cuts, that's what these channel sampling was completed on historic bulldozer road cuts that were done in the area. It's covered by volcanic ash that erupted about 1,400 years ago out of Mount Meager, and a lot of talus. So it's very difficult to get exposures, and that's why we're looking at remote techniques like soil sampling and biogeochemical work. But these channel samples I show here did also generate 3 areas within them. Roughly 9 meter type intersections of 8 to 8.6 to 9.69 grams per ton gold over those intervals. And those are consistent sample to sample intervals. So it's very encouraging, and it's associated with sulfidized, ductile, and brittle ductile shearing. This shows you what one of those cleaned off outcrops up the Eagle Zone. This is the Eagle 1 road cut. And this is the zone that ran 5.89 grams per ton gold over 31.5 meters, and a narrower zone at the north end that ran 4.6 over 0.37. This is kind of an oblique view down the cut just because the vegetation made it difficult to do straight on views. But this is all very intensely uncarbonated, altered. And then the mineralized zones often have more intense shearing, sometimes silicification or veining, but largely ductile shearing with higher oxide content, which creates more intense oxidation. Just for reference, this 31.5 meter sample also had 3,757 ppm arsenic over that 31.5 meter interval. We'll bring that up a little later in the presentation based on our drilling results for this year so far. So all of these encouraging surface work and the work done to date encouraged us to go in and complete a drill program this year. We focused on RC drilling to test these zones at shallow levels because of the poor consolidated nature of the mineralization. We decided to test with our reverse circulation. We got our drill permit granted and approved in October of 20. We posted our reclamation bond shortly thereafter. The drill permit was signed in October, and the drill was mobilized in November of 2020. We completed the drilling of 17 RC drill holes that were completed by mid-2020, and geological and portable XRF logging was completed in late December. We don't expect to see drill assays on our project here until February, as the current guidelines have been given by the lab. So this just shows the location of the holes, 17 holes with 9 in this Eagle Zone, 2 at the Eagle South and 5 at the Imperial and Imperial North area. I'll touch on these briefly. So this is a detail of the Eagle Zone channel sampling, which we touched on earlier. Of the 3 zones up at Eagle 3, Eagle 1, and Eagle 0, where we had very good channel sample intersections. The purpose of this slide is just to show you the location of the drill holes that we put into these areas. 9 holes drilled at a 0.080 azimuth to intersect what we interpret as the dominant structural trend of 3250, a structural trend dipping steeply to the southwest. Of course, within these zones, we also, as I mentioned, had the 2 higher grade intervals of at Eagle 1 of 9.1 meters, grading 9.69, and at Eagle 3, 9.1 meters at 8.6 grams per ton. Now this is the results from the PXRF geological logging of the sample chips that were collected from the 17 holes. 14 of those holes had significant intersections, but the highlight was from the 9 holes at the Eagle Zone, where we had very good PXRF assay intervals anywhere from 7.6 meters up to 24.4 meters. Varying from about 1,000 ppm arsenic up to 3,227 ppm arsenic. The best zone was the 24.4 meter zone of 3,227 ppm arsenic at the Eagle, was drilled under the Eagle 1 outcrop. And if you recall, I showed you the channel sampling on surface where we had got similar levels of arsenic in over 31.5 meters in the channel sampling on surface. That channel sampling, based on the drilling interpretation to date, suggested it was not quite a true width, but these 0.80 azimuth drill holes look like they're intersecting what we assume is true width. Of course, we don't have any gold results. This is strictly geological logging done with a portable XRF, and our gold assays will provide us a definitive results which are more comparable to the ICP geochem that was done on surface versus this portable XRF. So the results are documented here on the 9 holes that are at the Eagle Zone, with the purple indicating the channel sample results that we got shown in plan view, and the plan view of the projected drill intersections on the 9 drill holes. And this information has given us confidence in interpreting that the shear zone that we see at Eagle 3, which we're calling the Eagle 3 shear strand, looks like it has a strike of about 350 degrees and a 60-degree western dip, and that we have a separate strand, sub-parallel strand at Eagle 1 and another one at Eagle 0. There are 2 drill intersections we've got, drill sections that I'll show you cross sections of. But the key point here is that they all seem to, the interpretation is that they all have this 350-degree strike, and the best interpretation, because we got enough penetration points, it gives us a pretty strong confidence in the dip of this Eagle 3 strand. As you can see, because of the slope direction, these intersections are offset to the west and largely explained as a result, easily explained now with the strike and dip together with the slope direction indicating an apparent strike that goes more northwest, despite the intersection suggesting a more northerly strike. This shows a cross-section on the southern section where we drilled under the Eagle 3 channels, and the XRF gives us about 1200 PXRF arsenic over 16.8 meter interval there. So we're confident that we're going to get a good wide gold interval there. PXRF cannot give us confidence in the tenor of gold, but there is a very strong correlation, around 0.85 positive correlation between arsenic and gold in all the channel sampling. So we're pretty confident that zones where we're getting the PXRF arsenic will also be gold bearing. The drill hole number 13 was drilled down dip of that on the Eagle 2 road cut, and in that intersection we got 1,976 PXRF arsenic over 13.7 meters. And this is the northern section of those two, where we get one clip on what we interpret as the Eagle 3 shear strand in the Eagle 2 road cut, and it's probably just the bottom end, and so that's probably why in that channel sample we only have a 7.6 meter hit of about 1,000 ppm arsenic. We probably just got the bottom of the intersection. And then we interpret that the channel sampling drilled under the Eagle 1 is probably related to a separate subparallel but very closely parallel strand called the Eagle 1 shear strand, and that's where we got two hits through there of 21 meters of 1980 PXRF arsenic, and then another strand of 24.4 meters of 3,227 PXRF arsenic. We do have another step out hole that gives us a pretty good confidence on strike on the Eagle 1 shear strand. Now, the other thing we did on our property, and we did before, obviously, we did most of this channel sampling work, was a really good orientation soil sample work, which has never been done on the property, a good systematic program. And this just shows an image of what the soil profile looks like and the problems that we had with that pumice tephra ash sitting on the top of the soil, which came out of Mount Meager about 1,400 years ago. And then we have a talus fine to sea horizon soil, which is what we targeted with our soil sampling, getting down into bedrock. We also did a program of biogeochemical sampling where we collected Douglas fir clippings, which were ashed and analyzed. This just shows the image of the soil work that we collected of the talus fine soil, and this was very positive. We've got a zone that's at least 1.2 kilometers of strike of plus 100 ppb gold, and I think we had 12 samples in there. 12 samples in that soil sampling program that ran over 1 gram per ton gold in the soil sample. So that's 27 ppm gold in one of them, 11 ppm in another, 5.5 and 8.42. So it was pretty significant kind of numbers, and we have a pretty good correlation between those soil samples, and we're getting the better gold results in the channel sampling that we collected on surface. So the most interesting thing is that this systematic work had never been done by Manika, and he had such a logical and would have really highlighted the potential of this Eagle zone, which was not really adequately explored during the Manika exploration phase of 1985 to 2008. So that gives us a lot of hope for potential along strike that has not been opened up by roads. And to help us with that, and because of that tephra ash horizon, we did do an orientation survey this year, biogeochemical sampling, and we found that biogeochemical sampling of collecting the Douglas fir also identified a very coincident arsenic soil anomaly associated with the gold in soils, which also had high arsenic in the soils. So we are very satisfied with this survey, and we have completed along the full royal shear trend on our property. We've completed a full survey, and those results will hopefully be announced before month end. You can see coincident with our real high numbers and the channel samples, which are shown in the teal color on here. Those are the areas that were channel sampled, so they're roughly representative of where the better gold and alteration zones were. So I'll back up a little bit and go back to 2008. I did mention some good drilling that was done in 2008, and this just shows you a plan of where some of those drill holes were completed in 2008, and a cross section just to kind of show you what the zone looks like based on the 2008 drilling. Our work this year with the RC program came in and did some drilling shallow holes that tested the untested up plunge potential of the Royal Shear and the mineralization at the Imperial zone on the Royal Shear, which didn't look like it had been tested with shallow holes. So we tested that with 5 holes this year. This just shows the cross section based on the 2008 drilling, and you see a very steeply dipping interpreted reverse fault, which probably has lateral components to it as well, based on what we're seeing in the structural activity. But what's pretty consistent is this dominant sequence of cherts and sediments in the hanging wall, and then a very thick sequence of mafic andesitic volcanics in the footwall, which are strongly altered in and around the main shear structure. And this shows some of the better drill intersections that were picked up down dip, and some of the shallower holes based on old drilling done, which we don't really are not comfortable relying on because there was never any core recovery information, and some of the azimuths were not recorded properly, and the core logging is insufficient to really determine whether the result of the spotty drill intersections was poor core recovery, poor sampling, etc. So whereas the 2008 work was very systematically and well-run program. So this just shows you that 5 of the holes in that 2008 program, indicating intersections down to the deepest at about 260 meters down hole, and that was probably a roughly vertical drill hole. So that's probably about a 250 meter vertical depth, and it was picking up a 4.2 meter intersection down there of the highest grade intersect in that 2008 drill program of 13.3 grams. So this shows the strength of the system. I think the Imperial zone, they did understand that there was an easterly plunge to the system, and that drilling focused on identifying that and re-drilling and drilling and re-drilling the same zone during that history of exploration between the 1986 discovery hole and 2008, at least tried to step down and open up the system at depth with those deeper holes. And this just shows one of those holes drilled with the deepest intersection, showing the obvious hanging wall chert sequence with a fault zone, and then ending up with this shear breccia vein system over the 4.2 meter intersection in this area. And most obvious is the buff colored anchorite iron carbonate alteration associated with the gold zone. So our option deal involves an option to earn 100%. We have to make $300,000 in cash payments, of which $260,000 are remaining, and we have to make 4 million endurance shares, of which 3.5 million are remaining, and 3 million in exploration expenditures, and it's estimated at this point there's 2.5 million remaining of exploration expenditures. The vendors retain a 2.5% NSR. We have the right to buy out 1.5 of that NSR for 1 million. So to summarize and to reiterate, we've got a great discovery stage gold project. It's an easy drive from Vancouver. Excellent drill intersections. It has been poorly explored right up to 2008 when there was a good documented, professionally documented drill program. And then the project went silent until we did our program in 2020. The program this year, we completed compilation of historic data, magnetic surveys, first soil sample, systematic soil sample, first systematic biogeochemical coverage, really surface channel sampling with excellent results, a drill permit and 17 holes, and then completed drilling assays are not expected, complete drilling assays are not expected until probably February. And we now have a 2021 drilling program in the planning stages. So thank you very much for your attention. I encourage you to get a lot more detail on the chip sampling in a separate PowerPoint presentation. And then we have another really good PowerPoint presentation as part of this preparation for the core shack, where we demonstrate some of the really good core textures and processes and giving an understanding of the paragenesis for the deposition of this orogenic gold system. Thank you very much.